Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome to Blissfully Bloom. I'm Victoria LeBlanc, a self-love and soulful coach, and I'm your host. The intention of this podcast is to guide women to fall in love with themselves, embody confidence, and drop the stories of not good enough. Your soul will awaken to the truth that you have always been worthy. In this remembering, you no longer wait for permission, validation, or acceptance. You choose yourself, and you become a woman who blissfully blooms like a rose, showing the world your authentic self, talents, and gifts because it's your birthright. Hello, and welcome back to Blissfully Bloom. In today's episode, I have a guest come on the show, and her name is Donnalynn Riley. She is a joy coach, and we're going to talk about emotional well-being today and also how to find your joy. Donnalynn has been coaching people to become masters of their communication, relationships, and success for over a decade. From a career on Broadway to being CEO of a multimillion-dollar corporation, her own journey helped her understand and create strategies for managing emotions and surpassing every goal. Donnalynn is now on a mission to inspire women to prioritize their joy and emotional well-being so they can show up as their best version of themselves. I am so excited for y'all to hear our conversation today. Some of the questions that we dove into are things like, what are the keys to living your best life? What is the biggest secret to emotional well-being? What advice would you give to somebody who tends to hide their emotions under the rug and ignore them? And what are some practices to expressing our emotions in a healthy way? If you love what you hear today, make sure to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I would really appreciate it, and it would help the podcast reach more listeners and grow and bloom. So yes, definitely go ahead and do that. And I would love to hear your biggest key takeaway from the episode. So make sure to screenshot it and share this post and share your screenshot onto your stories. And don't forget to tag me at blissfully.bloom so that I can also shout you out and share your story on my story. All right, so without further ado, let's get straight into this episode. Hi, Donnalynn. Welcome to Blissfully Bloom. How are you doing today?
I am doing really well. Thank you so much. I'm really excited about being here.
Thank you. I'm excited to have you on the show today and talking about emotional well-being. So the first question that I have for you is, what is one powerful lesson that you have learned that has changed your life?
So there are so many, but I think that where I would start with it is that, I was somebody who was always like, I had, all the herbs lined up when somebody got sick, and I sort of, I was kind of into it all. But I had a big job, and I had, I was sort of also part of the world in a way that I'm not now, right? I'm a coach, and I get to talk about this all freely and everything. And so I feel like there's a difference between knowing and really knowing in this way where your heart is integrated into the knowing. That I experienced that when I had all this knowledge, and yet I still found myself in a situation where the people who I was working with were a problem. Like everything about it was a problem. There was sabotage going on. There was all sorts of things going on. And it took me a while, but probably a week or two from that moment to go like, oh, I could do something out of the box for this and just see what happens. And my whole world changed to the point where my employees came to me and said, what did you do? What did you do? You have to teach us, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's it. You got to just try. You got to get it down here in your heart.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of us maybe go against what our heart says sometimes, or what we're feeling into our heart space, because it can be kind of scary sometimes to know that truth and to be like, oh, maybe what I'm doing isn't what I meant to be doing, and that's even a scary thought. But I think once we start opening those doors and really trusting and leaning into it, that's when the magic starts to occur. That's a really beautiful lesson. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that you're talking about it in that way, because I think a lot of times people kind of want to use their heart when it comes to things like, what is my passion, and who should my mate be, and like that. But the heart it's a permanent asset we have. Right? So we don't get to just parade it out, right, in those times when we're like, oh wait, it's an important decision, let me use my heart, right? Because then it's not integrated. We don't know anything. We're not aware enough to have good information.
And what would you say is like, when if somebody has never heard of the or just known what it's like to have this heart integration in their lives, what would you say that like looks like or feels like?
Well, it's a funny thing, but I believe that I can't imagine a scenario where somebody doesn't know it. Now, I'm going to explain that, because I think there are lots of people who feel like they don't know it, right? But we've all been to a movie, and we've all walked out of the movie going like, wow, that was a car chase, or, oh, that was a scary horror flick, or, right, whatever it was. Like, I love a shoot 'em up, whatever that thing is, right? Where we felt our bodies respond to our sensation of our environment. And so we are in the entrainment business already with ourselves, right? We just think we're not. We think, oh, we're using our head. We go to work, we're using our head. We know how to drive. These are all like thinking processes, right? But in reality, they are also feeling processes, because we have neurons that look just like the neurons in our head in our heart. Wow. And so there's a little miniature head, or what do they call it? Brain. There you go. In your heart. And so it's recording, it's thinking, it's participating. And those two things are meant to behave together. So when you have children and one of your kids walks in and says, oh, I got an F on my test, you're emotionally involved. You are, right? Or when one of your other kids goes into the ballet recital and she's brilliant, you're emotionally involved. You're like, I got the video camera, I'm showing all my family, right? So we are doing it. The real question is, how do we become aware and then become able to participate in a conscious way so that we have a lot of control?
Feeling like your heart is leading you, but also guiding you in a sense?
The heart is an excellent feedback mechanism, right? So it tells us, our emotions tell us when we're in danger. They tell us when we're upset, when we feel threatened, when we feel angry, and they will tell us when we're in love, right? So they're an excellent feedback mechanism. And I think when we look at it that way, when we say, oh, this part of my body, this is my arm, and it's really good for picking things up and putting them down, right? So when we do that with our heart, we say, oh, this part of my body not only distributes the blood and does all these physical processes, but also it gives me information about what's happening around me and how I perceive it. So sometimes we act like we're in danger, but we're not really, right? We call that stress, right? We have lots of it in our society. And sometimes we feel like we're in love, even though the other person doesn't know we exist, right? So there's a lot of information that we get from the emotions. And there can be a lot of enjoyment that we can get there, right? But they shouldn't rule us, right? It's not leading my bus. My spirit, my soul gets to drive the bus, right? And then our hearts get to give us all sorts of information. We get to love that, all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. This reminds me of the book that I'm reading currently, The Untethered Soul, and they speak of the spiritual heart. And basically, kind of like what you were saying, is a lot of our memories that weren't really processed, or emotions that weren't fully processed, end up in our heart spaces. And we may not realize it now, but they are impacting the decisions we make, our sort of reactions or responses to certain situations. So the heart does play a big, big role in our lives for sure.
Yeah, definitely. You bring up a really interesting question about how much can we participate with something if it's already sort of pre-programmed, right? So either we carry things in from another time period, we pick things up around us. We are, as children, we are just little sponges. We learn really, really quickly. Literally our body is in certain wavelengths, right? To where our brain goes like, oh, we're just input only. Not a lot of output here, input only, Yeah. So then the question becomes like, am I ruled by those ancestral issues? Am I ruled by that childhood that did not serve me, or by that early life that did not serve me, right? Sometimes certainly happened in my life, where I made a whole bunch of choices between the ages of, 15 and 30 that maybe really did not serve me, So then what do you do? How do you go from where you are to be able to move forward?
Yeah. And what would your response be to that question?
Yes, of course. Right. I shouldn't have paused there.
I'm like, oh, I want to know.
Yeah. So this is what is fascinating to me. I spent many years of my coaching, training and practice working with people to sort of clear the clutter of our past, right? And like I said, the past can be in this lifetime. In other lifetimes, it's a general term I'm using as opposed to your literal past. There is some value in that. But what I've discovered through walking through the most difficult years of my life recently is that we don't have to do all that work. That there is a faster, easier, more effective, and certainly more enjoyable way to get to the place where we get to enjoy our lives. We get to participate in a way where we end up with luck, coincidence, all the good stuff, all the stuff we want. And we get to sort of foster that in our lives without doing a whole lot of clearing of the past. And so that's an important turn, right? Because that means you can start today and you can have relief immediately.
Yeah, your past doesn't have to define you. So I'm curious about what led you to becoming a joy coach. I know that you had this Broadway career and just living it up. How did you transition into this coaching world?
Yeah, so I have been blessed to both get to do amazing things and live a long time. And so I got to work on Broadway. I got to meet amazing people. I got to be in the presence of what I will forever hold in my heart as greatness, right? And I also got to walk away from that when it was time for me to walk away from that. I got to learn new skills and run an entire corporation and, be a part of that world. And so I've been really, really blessed. And I will say that I took all of that. So I became a spiritual health coach, was the original way that we would call it. And in 2008. And I did not stop running this big chain of stores that I worked at until 2014, right? So I got to take all of that training and practice and bring it into this world, the real world, where we all live, and we have to go to work, and we have to do things, right? And that's the hard part, right? So that was the thing I got to practice for a very long time, both personally and with my clients. And when I left, I worked with people's emotions in order to help their businesses, their productivity, their clarity, all of those things. And about 2 years ago, my husband got diagnosed with a terminal disease, and very quickly he passed away. And then my house sold a couple of days later. And I was in the portal of change, right? Mm-hmm. And for me, this is a really big defining factor in that for me, when my life kind of fell apart, that's, it was like, you are no longer in the life that you built, right? Mm-hmm. When that happened, I had all of this training, all of this knowledge, all of this practice to be able to walk through that in a way that I have certainly never experienced myself or really ever seen very many people do. And when I did that, when I knew that you could walk through the darkest period of your life and still go to sleep every night and be okay, then I knew I have to change the way that I'm teaching. I have to change the way that we're talking. I need to shine a light in a new part of this. And that's really where that focus on joy comes from for me. That if we can work with the heart and get ourselves in the right vibrational frequency, right? If we can get in the right town, not the town of anger, loss, regret, guilt, worry, shame, right? Those are all regular feelings. People have them every day. And also they're the feelings that happen during grief, right? Mm-hmm. But if we can just every moment that we can walk ourselves into the towns of contentment, ease, rest, fun, playfulness, then supportedness, right? That was one thing that I just felt like that kept happening for me over and over again. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel like I did that, right? I just felt like that happened for me because I didn't feel like I was very proactive. The one thing that I was proactive about was being willing to feel as happy as I could feel at any moment. And that changed everything. And that's really how I became a joy coach.
Wow. That's incredible to hear your story and to just know that no matter where you were on that path, everything kind of led up to where you are now. What I'm also curious about is we all perceive things in a different way because we have a meaning, we attach a meaning to it. Mm. But if someone is going through what they perceive as a dark day, what would you coach them through to get them feeling that spark of joy again?
Yeah. So there's a couple of answers here. And one answer is practice. If you're in a good mood, practice. Start early and often, right? So get this into your life. Okay. So if you're in a good space, that is not the time to go I'm good. I got this. Right? Because it's kind of like walking along the edge of the river. You just fall in if the road gets a little bit unstable where you felt like you were fine because there was some road under you, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing that I would say, if you do find yourself in that space right now where you feel like whatever you're walking through is harder than you feel like you can do, right? This happens in all circumstances. So this could be a work problem that you're walking through. Could be career, could be relationship problems. It could be as extreme as literally a death. But there are so many ways in which we have to reinvent ourselves. And we walk through things that are truly difficult. And if you're in that space, my advice really is about willingness. It's about the willingness to just look away from that for 30 seconds. That's it. Mm-hmm. Just 30 seconds. And I think a lot of times when people go through things, even particularly, I noticed it during that grieving period that the people around me kind of were surprised. They were like, "Aren't you sad?" And I was like, that is not what I want to focus on at this moment because I am devastated, but I want to spend as little time as possible. You won't miss it. Trust me. Life brings on the bad feelings, right? So you're not going to miss out on feeling sad, angry, worried, insecure. None of it. It's all there for you anytime you want it. But if you're just willing, you just open yourself up to how could I feel just a little better right now? Now, sometimes when I talk about this, people feel like I'm talking about covering up their feelings, right? They're like, well, I can't just slap a smile on it.
Yeah.
Don't slap a smile on it. You be in every feeling you're in. And there were many, many moments. It's still going on in my life, right? So there was a moment, I don't know, 2 days ago or something, where I was confronted with a picture that brought up a memory and a current event in my life that was contributing to it. And all of a sudden I thought, oh, this feels awful. Go ahead and feel it. Feel it. Mm-hmm. It's not going to kill you. Feel it. Sob, cry, throw things in your house. Don't hurt anybody. But when it's over, when you have that millisecond of opportunity to let it go, don't keep it going, right? Let it go. And then see what happens. See if you can feel just a little better, a little better, a little better. Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like the more that we resist it, the more stronger and intense that feeling might start to come, and then it feels almost too overwhelming to bear and to hold. So I do find that with emotions, you mentioned like burying them under the rug, because I think a lot of us, even on social media, there's just this whole like good vibes only going around, and I am definitely not for that. I don't feel like there's going to be a good vibe every single second of our lives. There's going to be some moments where it's like, oh, this is a real human emotion right here that I'm feeling, and it's not in the quote unquote good category. What do you suggest for us to like start to avoid ignoring or hiding or pretending that it's not there?
Yeah. So this is a really interesting question because where we live on that emotional roadmap, right, is what we've practiced. And so if we have had a lot of sad events and we have leaned into that emotion over and over again, then that's what's going to come up over and over again. So a lot of times we only want to show the good, right? We just like, this is acceptable, therefore you can have it, right? Whether you are private and you want to do this in your personal life, or you're public and you're like, no, I'm showing everything. That doesn't matter. None of that matters. What matters is that you're able to raise your awareness of what's happening, and that as you move through wherever that hometown is that we were all given with our childhoods, you know what I mean, right? We were all gifted a little childhood that usually didn't serve us. So wherever you ended up in that hometown, in that crazy family, if it's a little like mine, then you work your way to a place that's a little better than that. So the reason that I bring that up in this question is because when we experience positive or negative, when we speak it, when we bring it out and amplify it, that's what we're doing, is amplifying it. So when you want to amplify something, then it's a good idea to bring it out in front of everybody. And when you don't, you're never going to get rid of it by going, it doesn't exist, it doesn't exist, it doesn't exist. I'm fine, right? But if you take the time to get quiet with yourself, to feel what you're feeling, to share it with whomever it feels right to share it with, if that's right for you, I know that, for instance, for me, I am an extremely private person when it comes to that kind of thing. But there were still people who I would call or video or invite over when I needed to be safe in those feelings. And so be safe in them. Let yourself cry in a pint of ice cream or whatever your thing is, right? Watch the sad movie. Allow yourself to experience anything that you feel like this feels like it's helping me, it's right for me, it feels good. And then be willing to let go. And so that's the tricky part, right? And I think that what you're talking about in terms of social media is that we just Instagram ourselves to death, right? We just go like this. It's all good. Even I could be like almost an Instagram girl, right? I mean, I have none of the right qualities, but I can make it look good. I got a pool and I got makeup and, all the things. And I'm like, woo, I look like a pretty girl now, right? But the thing is that is what you're bringing into the world. It's what you're birthing, right? Mm-hmm. So as you do that, there are going to be times, especially if you really are an Instagram girl, right? If you really are someone who relates to social media, who it's part of your life, when it's time for you to say, hey, I got to turn this thing on and say what I really think, those are the golden moments. Those are the moments when we really are able to connect. And the comments that you get back and the private messages that maybe you get, it doesn't matter where it comes from, right? It doesn't matter if it's my neighbor that shows up with cookies and I go there, or if it's on Instagram. What matters is that we show our authentic selves when it's good and when it's not good, and that we curate that for ourselves, to serve ourselves as opposed to serve other people.
Yeah, not trying to avoid people pleasing, which I am very much a recovering people pleaser. But when you say letting it go, what does that mean?
So for me, emotions are best experienced when I allow them to move through my body, right? Because the emotions, what happened in my body to create that situation is that there was a thought, and it sent signals, and it said, hey, make all these chemicals, and now you're in the chemicals, right? And so you're going to experience them. You could say you're not going to, but you're going to experience them because we all have physical bodies, right? Yeah. So the more we can kind of raise that awareness of like, oh, this is a thing that I'm experiencing, and it has a reason. So I'll go back to that moment the other day. I've never told this story before. It just happened. And I was standing there in that moment of looking at a picture of my husband and dealing with a current real world, potentially sad situation. And I went there and I thought, wow, loss is so hard. And I felt that happen in my body. And I said, okay, now you've felt that. Okay. But I don't have to keep going. The next thought is my choice. And so the next thought that came into my head, not really on purpose, just the next thought that came was, I'm an eternal being. Wow. I'm eternal. So eternity doesn't really have a respect for time. So how do I feel about this moment now? Now that I feel the bigness of my soul. And it felt totally different, right? It felt like, oh, these are not losses in my life. They're losses in this life, but they're not losses in the big life in my soul. They are things to be celebrated for that soul, right? They are 25 years of marriage, ups, downs, all of it, right? They are, wonderful 30, 40 years hanging around with this person, right? And so you say to yourself, where am I going to look at this from? And that's the willingness part, right? Mm-hmm. It isn't, you don't actually have to change your feelings. at all, right? You just have to
Yeah.
be willing, because your soul will see things from a different place, your spirit, however you want to call it, right? It doesn't have to be too woo woo, that inner voice, right? They're going to see it from a different perspective, and then you'll have a thought like I had that thought. Now, I steep myself in positive emotion all the time. So maybe that thought's not going to pop into your head unless you've studied a lot, right? But some thought can pop into your head when you just really allow yourself to just release. So that's physical. There's a physicality to it. You can feel your stomach muscles loosen a little, your jaw loosens a little. For me, I feel it a lot in the back of my neck and my shoulders. I just feel this as if somebody has put like a pillow or a hand here, right? Just gets very soft and easy when I'm willing. And then go to the next best thing that you can find. And the next best thing might be revenge, right? It might be, yes, I really do hate them. I wish I could, stab them a little bit, right? A lot. Don't get off course here. Right? We're not hurting anybody. These are just feelings. Keep them as feelings, right? But that might be the next best thought you can have, because from sadness, that is a great feeling. In fact, after my husband passed away and I was packing my house up, I mean, it's a ridiculous amount of energy to move when all you want to do is just lay down and not move, right? And I would literally go to the movers and say, anger is better than sadness. Anger is better than sadness. And one of the movers one day said to me, why are you saying that? I don't think it is. I said, oh, it's not better for you. It's better for me, right? So I might bark a little at you. I might go like, why are you moving that box? But that was a huge step up from I am abandoned, I am alone, I am lost, right? All of those deep, 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 dark places that we go in loss and in identity change.
Like almost like a feeling of hopelessness down there.
Yeah, I mean, you can really go some pretty dark places. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but if you can know what's a better feeling. Oh, anger is better than sadness if I'm moving in the direction of getting to happy, right? Or revenge is better than sadness, right? Because it means that I've at least turned that anger out here instead of internal depression, right? So now we want to move through emotions. We don't want to sit in them. We don't want to plan and plot and, right? We don't want to sit in them. The idea is to move through them. So your next thought might be something more about frustration. And I really wish those boxes would just fold themselves, right? So now we've gone from like complete abandonment to like, I could probably fold a box if I tried. Right? And then allow yourself to move through that, right? And that's that willingness piece that I'm talking about, is that at each moment of that, to say, I felt that, I'm willing to not feel it in the next moment. I'm willing to feel something new.
Yeah, because what you focus on grows. So if you do end up staying in maybe a sad thought or an anger thought or whatever it might be, it'll only grow and grow and grow from there if you aren't willing to step out of it.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right.
I think
there is a new format of masterminding that I'm working with, and it is my format. I've sort of put some things together, and a while back there was a study, and it was about how much positivity do we need compared to how much negativity. And we are, in this society, are so used to problem solving. That's what we do, right? We go like, okay, what time do you need to be there? Okay, what time? Okay, I'll figure that out. Oh, right? So that's our go-to, is like, I can solve the problem. I can fix it. But nothing creative can come from there, from that space of fixing. A few people will disagree with me. It's all right. So if you are able to foster 5 times as many positive thoughts as you do negative thoughts, then your creativity is activated. You're living in what I like to, because I love this map, right? So I love to feel like I'm living in Happyville. I'm living in Joytown. I'm living in playfulness. I've got, what was the other one? It was Roller Coaster Alley, right? I've got all these places I can go. And if I'm willing to spend most of my time there, then when the problems come, I can have a different answer. And that's what we're doing with this mastermind, is we're taking that time that we usually go like, okay, what's your problem? Oh, I used to have that problem. This is what I did, right? And we're saying, okay, what's happening for you? What is working for you? How is everything working out for you? And we spend time in it. Okay, now what's the one thing you would want to change? And then we're all in a position where we're really ready to find that good answer. Yeah.
Because if you're just dwelling on everything that needs to be fixed or changed or tweaked, it could feel so overwhelming when that's all you're focusing on is the fixing and fixing and fixing and nothing that is going right. You know, things that are actually blessings and things that you find are your gratitude, like what's on your gratitude list.
Yeah. And you can do this at home, right? I mean, there were times, I had a job one time I hated. And so what I would do is I would just stare at the doorknobs. And doorknobs are beautiful. Have you ever noticed that? They're sort of rounded and some of them are shiny and they've got a lot of texture, some of them. And sometimes you even get a glass one, right? So you can tell I'm into them. I'm into them because I decided that I needed something, and it doesn't matter what. I needed something that I could focus on that was not in the crappyville that I felt like I was working in, right? And the doorknob was all I had. And I used it for all it was worth, right? I said, okay, I am going to learn to love doorknobs. I'm going to appreciate them. I love that they're a mechanism. I love the way they look. I love that we've been using them for centuries. That's kind of cool, right? All of the things, you can really milk anything in your house that way, anything in your office that way. Find something cool and go for it. And even if you use the same thing over and over again, to remind yourself that life is actually really good, right? And the nuances matter. Then you can get to that 5-to-1 ratio that you're looking for in your life.
So beautiful. And we often forget just the amount of negativity that is in our minds can really, really have an effect on just our mind, body, and spirit. So if we just keep pouring that water of positivity and kind of like let it drown out, hopefully things will start to change. And I like your little doorknob. Would it be like a fascination? Like
kind of. It's, the thing is, I focused on it. I just kept focusing on it and focusing on it. And then all of a sudden, I know a lot about them. I noticed them, right? Because they got heightened in my awareness, right? So I love them. I love them. Eventually, my late husband started getting me doorknobs. He was like, I think you'd like this one. I'm like, oh, I do like that one, right? But, let's change the doorknobs, right? You can have fun in this world. No matter what happens, right? Whether it's at a garage sale looking for a doorknob or it's at the Taj Mahal, right? It's not about money. This is about attitude. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I just got into plants. So
beautiful.
I've been just like growing them and it's just so cool to me to see them change based on like if they're happy or unhappy, and it just kind of reminds me like when I take care of them, it reminds me to take care of myself too. Like, are they getting enough light? Are they getting enough water? Do they need to be repotted? Just things like that. It's really like helped me to prioritize myself too, because I'm prioritizing them. Gotta take care of myself.
Yes, I totally get that. In fact, I was having a conversation with someone just yesterday about that with my cats. So I have 2 cats, And so I told you I went through the big portal of change. I feel like I'm on the other side of that. But of course, we're always going through a big portal of change, right? And but during that time, my two cats, they're older, and they were not well with all of this. So my husband was their primary care person. I was not in the house all that often, right? Because I had a big job and all those things. And they really started to fail. And I was beside myself. I was like, I don't know how to take care of them. You shouldn't have left because now I don't know how to take care of our sweet little beings, all of that, right? So it triggered everything in me. And as we got here in this new place and we got settled and we found our way and they found their way, I started to be able to open up and sort of determine what's best for them and what really is going to work for them. And we started to find our way, and they're very healthy now. But it is absolutely true that there are days that I'm like, it's such an inconvenience to pet you. Really? Is it an inconvenience for you to feel good? I'm not sure, right?
Yeah.
So these are great indicators. Like, no matter where you are in your life, there are always indicators for you about how am I interacting with the world, and what does that mean in terms of how much attention I've spent on myself. I mean, we have only one spacesuit, right? This is it. You get one spacesuit, and then you go through the trip, and then you're done. Maybe you go around again. I don't know, right? But I do know that you don't get a replacement halfway through, except for if you just want joints. You can get joints, but that's it, right? So these things that remind us that we need to rest. Our body has needs, right? We need to take the time to feel good. Take a petting break. Pet the cat, pet the rabbit, have a good time. Remember to laugh. Watch something cute and funny. I will say I'm a TikTok junkie. I love TikTok. But I have trained my algorithms. So I never get anything I don't want on TikTok or Facebook or any of those things, right? The things that I don't like seeing, they just don't show up. It's all working out for me. But in order to do that, you've got to not pay attention to them. You've got to not look at that political post and go, oh, I have got to tell somebody about this. Oh, let me put a comment. Let me dislike that. Right? You can't do it. You've got to be willing to say, this is the part about letting it go, right? You've got to be willing to say, oh, look, it's a political post. I don't want to get involved, or whatever your thing is, right? For me, that's the truth. That I spend a lot of vibrational energy, putting energy out into the world for peace, love, kindness. And there's science behind that, but I don't get boots on the ground. I don't say that's my person that should be in office. So that's where I draw the line. That's not necessarily right for everybody, but if it gets you out of balance, then you got to know life is exactly like that algorithm. Right? Except for the ads. But it's exactly like that. What you focus on is what they're going to feed you more of. But what you focus on in life is what you're going to notice more of.
Yeah, that is so true. So what would you say are the keys to living your best life?
My goodness. I think that the keys to living your best life are being willing to heal the past. There is some work that needs to be done there. And so do it, right? So make sure you have a way to do it. The second thing is to be intentional, right? To find the present moment and know how you want to participate with it. And the third thing is to take the time to do the emotional entrainment. The heart has a miniature brain in it. You can train it just like you did your brain, right? You went to school, you learned how to write and read and all these things. And that's how the heart is. So now you want to teach yourself, how do I feel happiness, contentedness, satisfaction, ease, playfulness? How do I feel those feelings that I want more of? And do the work to do the entrainment. right? So that's really the three-step process that I think is the best way to have the best life.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
And what do you say if someone is going through maybe depression or they're struggling with anxiety? How do they find their inner sense of joy and their inner sense of peace?
Yeah. So I think this is a really important question because I think that there are a lot of people like me who are out there going, you should feel good. And then there's plenty of listeners going like, you're an idiot. I can't feel good. And I think they're kind of right in that this is the step that's missing, that most of the time we skip over this step. And this step is that you cannot get from depression, worry, hopelessness, despair. You cannot get from there to playfulness, okay, in one step, right? You've got to be willing to do just feel a little better. Don't worry about being happy. Don't worry about pleasing all those people in your life who say, you know, you're such an Eeyore. I wish you would cut it out. Why do you always have to see the downside of everything? Tell them, oh, I'm a specialist. Don't worry about me. This is what I focused on, and I'm a specialist at it. And I did that. I focused myself into this place. I didn't want to, but I did it. And that means I can undo it one little bit at a time. So I think let yourself off the hook. There is no right way to go through this world. Being happy is what I want, right? It's what a lot of people want, but it isn't the right way. There's no right way, right? I know lots of miserable people who really seem like that is the exact right way, you know, for them. And that's okay. That they're having their best life if that's what they're choosing. So I think that's one thing, to just let yourself off the hook and know that wherever you are, it's good enough. You're good enough. This is a good moment. And that means if you're angry in it, this is a good emotion to have. And then be willing to work with yourself over a period of time. In this universe, it's a space-time continuum, right? So we've got space, infinite space, but we don't have infinite time. So allow yourself to go through the tick marks of time, right? That took 10 minutes, that took an hour, that took a day, that took a week, that took a year. It's all good. You're going to be in the experience of it. And you're going to be someplace different at the end of it.
Yeah. Your emotional well-being will thank you for it.
Yes. And your life can be full. I mean, when I think about, this is a little bit controversial to say, but I'm going to go ahead and go there for your listeners. You know, I would not change anything about my past. Now, does that mean that I wish my husband wasn't alive? No, of course. I would love for my husband to be alive. Don't get me wrong. But I would not change a moment of it because it all happened. And I get to treasure all of it. I get to treasure the depths of it, and I get to treasure the heights of it. And I wouldn't trade that. The conversations that I have now about a depth of feeling, I never had that ability to have that conversation before. I didn't know what those feelings were. So there is something that is for me in this moment and in this path. And even though, of course, if I could go back and change things, you would never wish that, right? But you're in this moment and there's something for you in it. So live it.
Yeah. And I love what you said about there's no need to quickly feel happy right now, right then and there. I mean, I guess a lot of us have, happiness, bliss, joy, peace as our goals, and we want to feel those feelings, but often it's not going to come right away. It's not going to come overnight. So I love how you highlight that, because it's really important to remember, especially when struggling with different mental health disorders and really feeling down or really feeling anxious. So
Yeah, it really does. And this is exactly why most of my work is done in membership style, right? It's done over time, and the expectation is that you stay. You stay with the work, because my experience is that when I learned to meditate, it was, I don't know, 20 years ago or something, but I'm still doing it. And what my experience is changes, how my life is changes, but I still need to know how to be quiet, and I still need to know how to be happy. And so that's really been my experience with my clients and my community, is that when we decide to live a different way, as opposed to, oh, you know who loves to talk about this is the diet culture, right? That, when we approach our lives like it's the diet culture, like this is grief that I'm in, or this is a moving issue that I'm in, or this is a divorce and I need to go through it. Okay, but the thing is, you're on a diet. You're viewing your life as a diet, as opposed to finding some fruits and vegetables to put into your spiritual life, right? Whatever that is. I don't know what the right food thing is, but do you know what I'm saying? Right?
Yes.
We have to take a long-term approach, because life is way longer than we think it is. Right? It's so long, and so many things can happen in such a short amount of years that that when we really allow ourselves to enjoy time, it doesn't slip away from us the way that it does when we go like, I gotta hurry, better get to work again, right? When we go like, wow, today I'm gonna drive in a car. Who thought that up? That is a cool thing, right? Right? So really be present. Really be present. Yeah.
Yeah. Even when you're driving, I'm like, whoa, we're just all driving in our cars right now, doing different decisions and taking us different places. Like, I wonder where that person's going. I wonder what they're going to do.
Yes. I love
like
the little pods. Exactly. Yeah. It's a good metaphor for how we experience life, right? We're in our lane. We're driving our car. Everybody else is doing something else. We got opinions about it. We don't know anything that's going on in their car, but we can tell you how to do it better. So don't be worried about other people. Just drive your car. You'll be fine. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So where can listeners connect with you, Donnalynn? Are there any sort of websites that you have, socials?
Yes.
I know you're on TikTok, so maybe TikTok.
I should be on TikTok, but I have like one video on there. I don't go to TikTok and look for me. I am, of course, on Facebook and Instagram, and it's just at my name. So it's Donnalynn Riley. And I have a website, donnalynn.blog, and everybody can find that as well. But the place that I would really start, the most important thing that I would say to your listeners in terms of getting to me and finding, like, if you resonated with what I'm talking about, then this is the path. Roadmap to morejoy.com. It will take you to a little quiz. It's just a 2-minute quiz. You'll find out where you are on that roadmap and some steps that you can take to get to the next place. And you'll also get to be part of my community, right? So you'll end up getting emails and being connected and getting to ask questions and all of that. So that's where I would start, roadmap to morejoy.com.
Well, that sounds great. Thanks for sharing. And my last question that I ask all of my guests is, what does it mean to blissfully bloom?
Oh, what a good question. I adore the name. I adore it. And the reason I really love this name is because bliss is not something we think about. But bliss is such a specific feeling. So to blissfully grow, to bloom into, right? Because bloom really indicates grow into something beautiful, and do it while you feel fantastic. So for me, that's what it really brings to mind. And I think that the way that I can do that in my life, right, is to take that approach with every moment that it's available to me. Could I feel bliss in this moment? could I feel it? Because growth is inevitable, right? So could I feel bliss? Wow, that would be something to reach for in each moment. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, and thank you for coming on the show. I had such a great time talking about emotions and how to feel it all. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Victoria.